Dinner at my parents' house had always followed the same rhythm. My brother talked. My father agreed with him. Everyone else listened. I had stopped trying to interrupt that pattern years ago. The table was crowded that evening, plates passed around, glasses refilled, the usual mixture of small talk and half-finished conversations. My mother had made a large roast, something she only cooked when everyone was home at the same time. For a while the conversation stayed harmless. Work stories. Traffic complaints. My brother describing some new business idea he was considering, though the details kept changing every few minutes. Then he leaned back in his chair and looked directly at me. "You know what saved me this month?" he said. I looked up from my plate. "What?" He grinned like someone about to tell a clever joke. "Sold your worthless stocks." The room went quiet for a moment, but not in the way you might expect. My brother sounded proud. "Covered most of my debt," he added, cutting another piece of meat. "Honestly, I should thank you." I stared at him. For a second I thought I had misunderstood. "My stocks?" I asked. "Yeah," he said casually. "That investment account you set up years ago. I figured if they weren't doing anything useful, might as well liquidate them." My father chuckled. "That's practical thinking," he said. He turned toward me and shrugged. "Besides, she'll never succeed in that market anyway." No one at the table seemed especially concerned. My mother frowned slightly but didn't say anything. I looked down at my plate again. The account my brother was talking about wasn't a hobby. It had started small, just a few $100s saved from my first job, but over the years it had grown steadily. I had spent nights learning how markets moved, reading reports, tracking companies. The portfolio had never been flashy, but it was careful, deliberate, and it certainly wasn't my brother's to sell. Across the table he kept talking, describing how relieved he felt now that his debt had mostly disappeared. I continued eating. The roast had cooled slightly while we were talking. I cut another bite and took my time chewing it. Arguing right there wouldn't accomplish much. I knew that from experience. My father leaned back and said, "Maybe this will teach you not to waste time on risky investments." I nodded slightly. My phone vibrated beside my plate. At first I ignored it. Then it vibrated again. I glanced down. A message from my lawyer appeared on the screen. "We need to talk about the brokerage account activity." A few seconds later the phone started ringing. I excused myself quietly and stepped into the hallway. When I answered, my lawyer didn't waste time with greetings. "Would detected unauthorized trades on the joint brokerage structure tied to your family accounts," he said. I leaned against the wall. "I assumed that might happen," I said. "We've been reviewing the transaction logs. Someone liquidated several positions earlier today." "That would be my brother." He paused briefly. "Did you authorize that?" "No." "Then we have a problem." In the background I could still hear faint conversation from the dining room. My brother laughing about something. My father responding. My lawyer continued speaking. "The brokerage firm flagged the activity because the account structure requires your authorization for those trades. We can move forward with a legal request to freeze all trading activity immediately." I looked down at the floor. "What does that involve?" I asked. "The firm locks the entire account until the transactions are reviewed. No withdrawals, no transfers, no new trades, and the review. They'll investigate how access was obtained." There was a short pause before he asked the final question. "Do you want us to initiate the freeze?" From the dining room, my brother's voice drifted down the hallway again. "Honestly," he was saying, "those stocks weren't worth much anyway." I exhaled slowly. "Yes!" I said. "Go ahead." "All right," my lawyer replied. "The request will go through within the hour." When I returned to the table, nothing had changed. My father was explaining something about the housing market. My brother was scrolling through his phone while eating. No one asked what the call had been about. For the next 20 minutes, dinner continued normally. Plates emptied. My mother brought out dessert. Then my brother's phone buzzed. He glanced down at the screen. His smile faded slightly. "That's weird," he said. He tapped the screen again. "What?" my father asked. "My trading app just locked me out." My father waved a hand dismissively. "Probably maintenance." My brother shook his head. "No, it says account access restricted." He refreshed the page. Then again. His confusion slowly turned toward me. "What did you do?" I took a sip of water. "The brokerage firm froze the account," I said. "Why would they do that?" "They're reviewing unauthorized transactions." The words landed quietly on the table. My father frowned. "What unauthorized transactions?" "The ones he mentioned earlier," I said. My brother's expression shifted from confusion to irritation. "You're serious?"
Yes.
"You froze the entire account over a few stocks. They weren't yours to sell." My father leaned forward. "You could have handled this privately." I met his eyes. "The brokerage firm prefers documentation." My brother stared down at his phone again, scrolling through the alert messages appearing on the screen. Across the table, my mother looked between us without speaking. The silence stretched longer than any argument would have. Eventually my brother muttered something under his breath and pushed his chair back slightly. No one laughed this time. I finished the last bite of dessert and placed my fork neatly beside the plate. The investments he had called worthless were now the reason the brokerage firm's compliance department was involved. I stood up and thanked my mother for dinner. As I walked toward the door, my phone buzzed again. Another message from my lawyer. "Account freeze confirmed." Outside, the night air felt cooler than expected. For years, my family had treated my work like an experiment that would eventually fail. But markets and legal systems didn't rely on their opinions, they only relied on records.